The sound her keys made when she threw them onto the counter was sharper than usual. Not loud, just careless. Like she didn't care what it disturbed. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of envelopes spread out in front of me. Utility bills, insurance notices, the kind of boring paperwork that quietly keeps a life together. I didn't look up right away. I didn't need to. That sound alone told me the evening wasn't going to be simple. "We need to talk," she said. Not angry, not emotional. Flat, like she'd already rehearsed it in the car. I folded the electric bill in half and set it aside. "Okay." She paced the length of the kitchen once, arms crossed, jaw tight. When she finally stopped, she didn't face me directly. She stared past me, at the wall. "I've been thinking about the house," she said. I waited. "We've been here a long time," she continued. 5 years. And we're still here." I glanced around the kitchen. Same cabinets we'd refinished ourselves. Same table we'd bought secondhand when we moved in. Everything paid for. Everything solid. "This house is fine," I said calmly. "It's paid off. Good neighborhood. Low taxes." We agreed. She laughed, cutting me off. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was sharp. Dismissive. "That's always your answer." "Fine. Paid off. Affordable." She finally looked at me then. "Other people don't live like this. They move forward." "Forward how?" She hesitated, then said it. "Bigger. Better. More." There it was. The word she never used directly, but always circled. "More death?" I asked. "More stress?" "No," she snapped. "More life." I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept my voice even. "We have a life. A good one." She shook her head slowly. "It doesn't feel like it." That sentence landed harder than anything else she'd said. "From where?" I asked. "Because from where I'm standing, we're doing better than most people our age." "That's the problem," she said. "You're always comparing us to most people." "And you're comparing us to who?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes drifted toward the window, like she was deciding whether to say something out loud. "Michael would have wanted more," she said quietly. The name didn't register at first. It took a second to catch up. "Michael," I repeated. "Who's Michael?" Her face drained of color. "Nobody," she said quickly. I shouldn't have said that. I stood up slowly. Not angry, just alert. "No," I said. "I think you should say it again." She waved her hand. "Forget it. You're twisting things." "I'm not twisting anything," I replied. "You just compared me to someone else." "I'd like to know who." She crossed her arms tighter, defensive now. "You're being ridiculous." "Am I?" I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I wasn't sure what I was looking for yet. I just knew I didn't want this conversation drifting into another vague argument I'd end up apologizing for later. I typed her name into my contacts. Scrolled. There it was. Michael H. I clicked through. Social media. Photos. Old ones. 2 familiar ones. High school. I asked. She lunged toward me. "Stop going through my phone." "I'm not," I said. "I'm going through mine." Her breathing picked up. "You're overreacting." I tapped the call button before I could second-guess myself. "What are you doing?" she hissed. I raised one finger. The phone rang. Once. Twice. "Hello." "Michael," I said calmly. "This is Diana's husband." Silence. "Oh," he said finally. "Hey." I put the phone on speaker and set it on the table between us. "She just mentioned you," I continued. "Said you would have wanted more out of life than I do. I thought maybe you could help me understand what she meant." Another pause. Longer this time. Then Michael laughed. Not cruelly. Not mockingly. Honestly. "Man," he said, "I don't know what she told you, but I got out years ago for a reason. She was never satisfied. Nothing was ever enough. I broke up with her 15 years ago and haven't regretted it once." I watched my wife's face go from pale to red in seconds. "She's still doing that thing," he added. "Comparing everything? Chasing what other people have." She reached for the phone. I picked it up first. "Thanks," I said. "That clears things up." "No problem," he replied. "Good luck." I ended the call. The kitchen was silent. She stood frozen, mouth open like she wanted to say everything at once and couldn't find a place to start. "Anything else?" I asked quietly. She turned and walked down the hallway without a word. The bedroom door slammed. The lock clicked. I sat back down at the table and unfolded the electric bill. My hands weren't shaking. That was when I knew something important had changed, not just that night, but long before it. I'd just been too busy trying to keep the peace to notice. The bedroom door stayed locked. I didn't knock. I didn't ask if she was okay. I sat there in the quiet kitchen, realizing that when someone spends years telling you you're not enough, eventually you either believe them or you stop listening. And I had just stopped listening. I slept on the couch that night. Not because she told me to. Not because I felt guilty. I just didn't feel like sharing a room with someone who had spent years quietly resenting the life we built together. Sleep came in fragments. Every time I drifted off, I heard Michael's voice again. Casual, almost amused. Never satisfied. The words didn't hurt the way they should have. They felt clarifying. Around 6 in the morning, I heard the bedroom door unlock. Soft footsteps in the hallway. She stood there for a moment, watching me like she wasn't sure who I was anymore. "We should talk," she said. I sat up and rubbed my face. "Okay." She sat on the opposite end of the couch, leaving a deliberate space between us. "Last night got out of hand," she began. I was frustrated. I shouldn't have said what I said. "About Michael?" She winced. "Yes, that. So why did you?" She twisted her hands together. "I don't know. I was upset about the house. About feeling stuck." "Stuck where?" "Here," she said, gesturing vaguely. "In this life." I let that hang in the air for a moment. "You've been talking to him." Her eyes flicked up. "What?" "Michael. You've been talking to him." She hesitated just long enough to answer without lying outright. "A little." "How long?" "A few months." The room felt colder. "And in those months," I asked, "did you tell him how disappointed you are with me?" She looked away. "That was enough." "Did you tell him I'm holding you back?" "I was venting," she said quickly. "Everyone vents." "To their friends," I replied. "Not to their exes." She stood up abruptly. "You're acting like I cheated." "Did you tell him things about our marriage?" I asked. "About me?" Silence. I stood too. "How much?" "Enough," she said quietly. Something settled in my chest then. Not anger. Certainty. "You painted me as the problem," I said. "And even he didn't buy it." "That's not fair." "It's accurate." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Finally," she said, "you don't understand the pressure I'm under. Everyone around me is moving forward. Buying bigger houses. Traveling. Doing more." "Doing more what?" "Living," she snapped. "We live," I said evenly. "We're just not competing." "That's easy for you to say." "Why?" "Because you're satisfied with less." I laughed quietly. Not because it was funny, but because it finally made sense. "I'm satisfied with what we have," I corrected. "There's a difference." She shook her head. "It's not enough." "For who?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Because it's enough for me," I continued. Or it was. Until I realized I've spent years trying to convince you of that. She sank back onto the couch. "I didn't know you felt like this." "How could you?" I asked. "You never asked." We sat in silence for a long moment. The house felt different without the tension filling every corner. Quieter. Clearer. "I think you should stay with your sister for a few days," I said finally. Her head snapped up. "What?" "I need space," I replied. "And you need to decide what you actually want." "You're kicking me out." "I'm asking for time." She grabbed her keys off the table. "Fine. But when I come back, we're going to talk about this properly." I nodded. "Sure." She left before noon. I watched her car disappear down the street and felt something unexpected. Relief. The house wasn't empty. It was calm. That afternoon, I made lunch and sat at the same table where we'd argued the night before. I started replaying the past year in my head. Not just the big moments, but the patterns. Her cousin bought a boat. Suddenly, our lake trips weren't good enough. A coworker got a promotion. Our vacations didn't count because they weren't exciting. Every milestone someone else hit became a quiet indictment of what we hadn't done. I scrolled through our text messages. Months of it. Her complaints. My explanations. Over and over again. Me defending our life like it was on trial. When had that become my job? I called Alfred. He'd known me since college. He'd always been honest. "Does she complain about me?" I asked. There was a pause. "Yeah," he admitted. "Kelly's mentioned it. It's been going on a while." "How long?" "At least a year." I thanked him and hung up. That night, I opened my laptop and did something I never thought I'd do. Not because I'd made a decision, but because I needed clarity. I searched for divorce lawyers. The information was straightforward. No kids. Both employed. House paid off. Clean split. I closed the laptop and stared at the wall. A week ago, I would have told anyone marriage meant pushing through discomfort. Now I understood the difference between hard times and disrespect. My phone buzzed. "Staying at Caroline's tonight. We need to talk about your behavior when I get back." "Your behavior?" I typed back 2 words. Okay. Then I put the phone down. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. The next 3 days passed quietly. Too quietly. The house stayed clean. The lights stayed off in rooms no one was using. Her side of the closet remained untouched, like she'd stepped out for groceries instead of questioning the entire foundation of our marriage. I didn't miss her the way I thought I would. What I missed was the idea of who I believed she was. Someone who wanted a life with me, not one she constantly compared against everyone else's highlight reel. On the second day, I went through our joint accounts. Not to hide anything, not to plan revenge, just to understand reality without emotion attached. We were fine, more than fine. Savings, no debt, both cars paid off, the house fully ours. By any objective measure, we were winning a game she insisted we were losing. That night, I poured a drink and sat on the back porch, listening to the neighborhood settle into sleep. Porch lights flicking off one by one, a dog barking in the distance. Normal life, the kind she called stuck. That word lingered. Stuck. It wasn't that she wanted more. It was that she needed to feel like she was ahead of someone else. And that meant someone always had to be behind. Too often, that someone was me. On the third day, she came back. I was in the garage organizing tools when I heard her car pull up. The door opened slowly, deliberately. She stepped inside like someone entering a negotiation she thought she could still win. "We need to have a serious conversation," she said. I set the wrench down and leaned against the workbench. "Okay." She crossed her arms. "Your behavior the other night was unacceptable. Calling Michael, embarrassing me, asking me to leave my own house." I raised an eyebrow. "Boundaries?" "Yes," she said firmly. "We need boundaries." I almost laughed. "Okay," I said calmly. "Let's talk about boundaries. Like the one where you don't tell your ex-boyfriend he would have given you a better life than your husband." Her face flushed. "That's not what I..." "Or the boundary where you don't spend months venting about me to your friends." She froze. "How would you know that?" "Because Alfred told me. And Kelly defended me every time you complained." Her mouth opened, then closed. She had no right. She had every right. I cut in. She was standing up for someone who wasn't even in the room. Silence stretched between us. "You don't understand the pressure I feel," she said finally. "Everyone around me is doing better. Bigger houses, better trips, nicer things. Better according to who?" I asked. "You're missing the point." "No," I said. "I'm finally seeing it." She sighed, frustrated. "What do you want from me?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted the words to land clean. "I want to know if you actually want this marriage," I said, "or if you're just afraid of starting over." Her eyes widened. "That's not fair. It's honest." She looked down. "I need time to think." "Take it," I replied. "But while you're thinking, I'm done putting my life on pause." She left again that night. The next morning, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Not out of anger, out of respect for myself. The office was simple. No intimidation. No theatrics. Just a man with a yellow legal pad who listened carefully and told me the truth without dressing it up. "Straightforward," he said after a few minutes. "No kids. Assets split. Clean exit if uncontested." "How long?" I asked. 3 to 4 months. Maybe less. I nodded. That was it. No drama. No punishment. Just clarity. As I walked back to my car, my phone rang. Her name. "Where are you?" she asked. No greeting. "Running errands." "We need to talk. Can you come home?" "I'll be there in an hour." When I arrived, she was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open. She closed it quickly when she saw me. "I've been thinking," she said. "And you're right. I've been unfair. I want to fix this." I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "What changed?" She hesitated. "I talked to Caroline. And she said I might lose you." There it was. Not she realized she loved me. Not she appreciated our life. "Fear. Are you trying?" I asked. "Or are you panicking?" Her face tightened. "That's cruel." "So is comparing your husband to an ex," I replied. Her phone buzzed on the table. She flipped it face down instantly. "Who's that?" I asked. "Nobody." "Show me." She grabbed the phone. "You're being paranoid." I stood up. "And you're keeping options." She didn't deny it. That was my answer. I said quietly, "We're done." 2 weeks later, I handed her the divorce papers. She stared at them like they weren't real. "You're serious?" "Completely." She cycled through everything. Tears, anger, promises, bargaining, counseling, trips, fresh starts. I said no to all of it. Not because I hated her, Because I finally respected myself. And if you're still with me right now, stick around. Stories like this only get clearer as the truth keeps unfolding. For months later, it was over. Clean. Fair. Final. She sent one last text. I hope you find what you're looking for. I didn't reply. 6 months after that, I ran into Kelly at a hardware store. She smiled when she saw me. You look lighter, she said. She was right. My life hadn't changed much. Same house. Same job. Same routines. The difference was simple. No one was telling me I wasn't enough anymore. And that changed everything. The quiet that followed the divorce surprised me. Not the heavy kind, the kind that presses on your chest, but a cleaner silence. The kind that lets you hear your own thoughts again. The kind that reminds you how loud things were before you noticed. For the first few weeks, I stayed busy. Not in a dramatic, reinvent my life way. Just small, practical things. I finished paying off the house, repainted the spare room, reorganized the garage properly this time. Not just to look productive, but because I wanted my space to reflect something intentional again. Friends checked in, some awkwardly, some sincerely. A few admitted, quietly, that they'd seen this coming long before I had. I didn't blame them. When you're inside something, you normalize it. You adjust. You tell yourself that constant dissatisfaction is just a phase, that comparisons are harmless, that love means patience. What I didn't realize was how much of myself I'd been shrinking to make room for her expectations. One evening, about a month after everything was finalized, I sat at the same kitchen table where that first argument had started. Same chair, same overhead light, different feeling entirely. I opened my laptop and scrolled through old photos, not because I missed her, but because I wanted to understand what had changed. Vacations, birthdays, random weekends. In almost every picture, she was smiling. And yet, I could now see it clearly. The smile never reached her eyes for long. It wasn't joy. It was performance. That's when something uncomfortable hit me. She wasn't unhappy because of the house, or the car, or the lack of luxury. She was unhappy because she didn't know how to sit still inside a good life. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me sad, for her, and for the years I spent trying to fix something that wasn't broken. A few weeks later, Alfred invited me to a barbecue. I almost declined. Not because I was avoiding people, but because I'd grown comfortable being alone. That was new for me. I went anyway. The backyard was full of noise, kids running around, someone grilling too much meat, music playing just a little too loud. Normal chaos. Healthy chaos. That's where I met Zoe. She wasn't introduced like a setup. No pressure. No side glances. She was just there, helping Kelly carry plates back inside. We started talking about nothing. Books, travel, work frustrations. The conversation didn't feel like a transaction. No measuring. No posturing. She mentioned driving a 15-year-old Corolla like it was a badge of honor. When I casually said my mortgage was paid off, she didn't blink. That's impressive, she said. That kind of stability is rare. The word hit differently this time. Stability. Not boring. Not settling. Stability. When I drove home that night, I realized I was smiling. Not because I'd met someone new, but because I hadn't once felt evaluated. Weeks turned into months. Zoe and I took things slowly. No rush. No pressure. No unspoken scoreboard. Whether it worked out long-term didn't even matter yet. What mattered was how calm everything felt. And then, one afternoon, I ran into Kelly again. She hesitated before saying it, like she wasn't sure if she should. She tried reaching out to Michael again. Kelly said quietly, "After the divorce." I nodded. "How'd that go?" He blocked her. I couldn't help the small smile that surfaced. "Some patterns don't change," Kelly added. "No," I agreed. "They don't." That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and thought about how close I'd come to believing her version of reality. That I was holding her back, that I wasn't enough, that wanting peace meant lacking ambition. None of that was true. The truth was simpler and harder to accept. You can't build a future with someone who's always looking sideways at someone else's life. You can't win a game where the rules change every time you catch up. And you can't make someone happy if they've decided happiness is always somewhere else. I didn't win the divorce. I didn't ruin her. I didn't get revenge. I just stepped out of a story where I was being quietly blamed for someone else's restlessness. And for the first time in years, my life felt like mine again. The strangest part was how ordinary everything became afterward. Not immediately. There was a stretch of weeks where my brain kept waiting for the next conflict, the next comparison, the next quiet accusation disguised as a casual comment. I'd come home from work and brace myself out of habit, like muscle memory from a long injury. But nothing happened. No sighs about what the house wasn't. No comments about what someone else had. No tension humming under every normal conversation. Just silence. And then, slowly, comfort. I started noticing small things again. How the sunlight hit the living room floor in the late afternoon. How good it felt to cook without someone hovering nearby, silently judging whether the meal was worth it. How peaceful it was to make decisions without needing to justify them. For years, I'd confused tension with motivation. I thought her dissatisfaction was a push toward something better. I told myself that if I just worked harder, planned smarter, earned more, eventually we'd arrive at the version of life she kept pointing toward. What I hadn't understood was that the destination kept moving. One evening, while cleaning out a drawer in the bedroom, I found an old notebook. One of mine. Inside were lists I'd written years ago. Goals, plans, ideas for the future. Some were crossed out. Others never started. Reading through them felt uncomfortable. Not because they were unrealistic, but because so many of them had been abandoned quietly, without discussion. Trips I'd decided weren't practical. Hobbies I'd stopped because they weren't productive. Risks I'd talked myself out of because stability mattered more. I closed the notebook and sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. It hit me then. I hadn't just been defending our life. I'd been editing myself. And I'd done it willingly, thinking that was what love required. The realization didn't make me angry. It made me cautious about who I let close and about the version of myself I was willing to give up next time. A few weeks later, I ran into her by accident. Grocery store. Same aisle. Different lives. She looked thinner, tired. Her eyes darted to the ring finger that was now bare on both of us. There was a flicker of something there. Regret, maybe. Or resentment. It was hard to tell. "Hey," she said. "Hey, how have you been?" "Good," I replied. And for once, it wasn't polite. It was true. She nodded slowly. I moved back in with Caroline. I heard. A pause stretched between us. "This wasn't how I thought things would go," she said. I met her eyes. "That makes two of us." She waited, like she expected something else. An apology, maybe. Or validation. Or reassurance that she hadn't ruined everything. I gave her none of it. "I hope you're doing okay," I said instead. Neutral. Honest. Finished. She forced a smile and pushed her cart away. I stood there for a moment longer, then continued shopping. No shaking. No anger. No urge to chase closure. That's when I knew I was done. Later that night, I took Zachary, the rescue dog I'd adopted a month earlier, for a walk around the neighborhood. He didn't care about square footage or vacation photos or what the neighbors thought. He cared about walks, food, and being near someone who showed up consistently. Turns out, that was enough. As we walked, I thought about how close I'd come to internalizing her narrative, that wanting peace meant lacking ambition, that stability was something to apologize for, that being content was a failure. It took losing the marriage to understand that none of that was true. Some people don't want a better life. They want a louder one, a shinier one that looks impressive from the outside, even if it never feels settled on the inside. And if you love someone like that, no amount of effort will ever quiet the noise for them. All you can do is decide whether you want to live inside it. I didn't. And walking back to my house, my quiet, paid-off, perfectly ordinary house, I realized something simple and final. I wasn't behind. I had just stopped running a race I never agreed to enter. The weeks after that settled into something steady. Not exciting in the way she always demanded, but solid. Predictable in the best sense of the word. I woke up without the dull knot in my chest. I went to work without replaying conversations in my head, wondering what I'd said wrong or what comparison I'd hear later that night. That absence was loud. I hadn't realized how much energy I'd been spending managing her disappointment, anticipating it, trying to soften it before it landed, living slightly ahead of my own life, always bracing. Without that weight, everything felt slower, but clearer. Zoe and I kept seeing each other. Coffee, walks, dinners that didn't feel like interviews. She never asked why I didn't want a bigger house, never hinted that I should aim higher. When I told her about the divorce, not the details, just the truth, she listened without trying to fix it. "That sounds exhausting," she said. It was the most validating sentence I'd heard in years. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to go through the last box I'd never opened. The one that had followed me through the separation untouched, like a sealed archive of a life I wasn't sure I wanted to revisit. Inside were old documents, photos, random keepsakes, and near the bottom, folded carefully, a handwritten letter. From her. I didn't remember when she'd written it, but judging by the date, it was early in our marriage. Back when we were still telling ourselves the tension was temporary. I just want more, it read. I don't want to wake up one day and realize I settled. At the time, I'd read that sentence and felt challenged, motivated, determined to be more for her. Reading it now, years later, I felt something else entirely. Pity, not because she wanted more, but because she never defined what more meant. And because she'd tied that undefined hunger to me, as if my role was to chase a moving target on her behalf. I folded the letter back up and placed it in the trash. Not angrily, not dramatically, just finished. A few days later, Alfred called. You hear from her lately? No. Probably for the best, he said. Kelly says she's still spiraling. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. There was a time when knowing she was struggling would have made me rush in, try to help, try to prove I was still dependable. That reflex was gone now. Not because I'd hardened, because I'd learned. One night, while Zoe and I were sitting on the porch, she asked me a question that caught me off guard. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Why did you stay as long as you did? I thought about it before answering. Because I believed love meant enduring dissatisfaction. I thought if I just stayed steady, eventually she'd feel secure. And now I know security doesn't come from effort alone. It comes from appreciation. She nodded, satisfied. No judgment, no probing. That was new too, being understood without being dissected. Months passed. Life didn't transform overnight. There was no dramatic upgrade, no sudden success story I could point to and say this is why leaving was worth it. Instead, there was peace. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that shows up quietly, in moments you don't expect, like realizing you haven't checked your phone in hours because there's nothing you're waiting for. Or cooking dinner without mentally preparing for criticism. Or making plans without considering whether they'll be impressive enough for someone else. One evening, I ran into Caroline at a mutual friend's gathering. She looked at me with something close to guilt. She really thought you'd come back, she said softly. I shrugged. I really thought she'd stop comparing. We stood there for a moment, two people acknowledging a truth too late to change. On the drive home, that conversation stuck with me, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed something I'd already accepted. Some people don't change because they're scared of loss. They change only when the loss actually happens. And by then, it's usually too late. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a second, engine off, lights dark. The house was quiet. Zachary barked once from inside, recognizing the sound. I smiled. This life, simple, calm, unremarkable by social standards, was finally enough. And this time, it was enough because I said so. The shift wasn't dramatic. There was no single moment where I woke up feeling healed. It happened the way real change usually does, quietly, over time, in the absence of chaos. One morning, I caught myself humming while making coffee. No reason, no victory, just a small, unconscious sign that my nervous system wasn't on high alert anymore. That's when it hit me how long I'd been living braced for impact. For years, every good moment had come with an asterisk. A trip that wasn't exciting enough. A purchase that wasn't impressive enough. A plan that didn't match someone else's timeline. Even happiness had conditions. Without her, those conditions disappeared. Zoe noticed it before I did. You don't apologize much, she said one evening, smiling slightly. For what? For existing, she replied. Most people do. I laughed, but later that night, lying in bed, I realized she was right. I'd spent so long apologizing for being content that it had become reflex. Sorry for wanting peace. Sorry for choosing stability. Sorry for not chasing louder versions of success. That reflex was gone now, not replaced with arrogance, just acceptance. A few months later, I received an email from her. Not angry, not pleading, carefully neutral. I've been doing a lot of thinking, it said. I hope you're well. I stared at it for a long time. The old version of me would have read between the lines. Would have wondered what she wanted. Would have drafted and deleted responses, trying to strike the perfect balance between firm and kind. This time, I closed the laptop. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay closed. That night, Zoe and I went for a walk. The neighborhood was quiet, the air cool. She talked about her students, about how proud she was when they figured something out on their own. You don't get to do the work for them, she said. You just give them the space. I smiled. That sounds familiar. She squeezed my hand, not asking what I meant. As we walked, I thought about how much effort I'd poured into trying to make someone see value in what we had. How much of myself I'd bent and reshaped to fit expectations that were never clearly defined. The irony was obvious now. I'd been married to someone who believed happiness was always one upgrade away, and now I was happier than I'd ever been without changing much at all. The house was still the same. The job was still the same. The routine was still the same. The difference was the absence of judgment. Weeks later, Alfred invited me over again. Just a small get-together. Familiar faces. Easy conversation. At some point, someone asked how the divorce had been. Clean, I said. Necessary. No one pushed for details. No one needed them. On the drive home, I passed a new development. Massive houses packed tightly together, banners advertising luxury living. I remembered how badly she'd wanted something like that. How certain she was that it would fix the feeling she couldn't name. I felt nothing looking at it. No envy. No regret. Just clarity. Some people mistake dissatisfaction for ambition. They chase bigger lives to avoid sitting with themselves. And they confuse comparison with progress. I'd done the opposite. I'd stopped running, stopped measuring, stopped explaining. And in doing so, I'd finally caught up to myself. When I pulled into my driveway, the porch light flicked on automatically. Zachary greeted me at the door like I'd been gone for years instead of hours. Inside, the house felt lived in, but not crowded. Full, but not noisy. I poured a drink and sat down, letting the day settle. There was a time when I thought love meant enduring constant disappointment. That stability was something to outgrow. That wanting less made me less. Now I knew better. Love doesn't keep score. Stability isn't stagnation. And peace is not a consolation prize. It's the foundation everything else is built on.